In 2019, then Hawaii Congresswoman and presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard knocked Kamala Harris for a loop when she went after her record on the debate stage.
There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana.
I am proud of that work, and I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work.
And now, as the former Democrat works to prepare former President Trump for tomorrow's 2024 presidential debate, Politico says her shadow is looming over Harris. Trump's transition team member, Tulsi Gabbard, joins us now. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. So a lot of people are asking, how is Donald Trump preparing? I know you've been brought in to help him with this. One of his campaign managers was on with us earlier and said that his tactics are different than Kamala Harris's in the way he preps. Tell us what it's looking like for Donald Trump.
Well, Kamala Harris is a politician in the worst sense of the word. Donald Trump is not and has never been, nor will he ever be, a typical politician. And, you know, he is very well versed on the issues. He is very well versed on Kamala Harris's record. And he's talking about these issues almost every day as he's out with the American people across the country, as he's doing interview after interview, town hall after town hall. And so for me, if there's anything that I can be helpful with, it really is just sharing the experience that I had with her on that debate stage and the kinds of tactics I think she will try to use to perhaps get under his skin or really to try to deflect away. Her goal is going to be to deflect away from her disastrous record that has caused greater harm to the American people in so many ways, and then shift to the new story, the new narrative that she wants to make voters believe and hopes that they will forget what she's already done over these last 3.5 years.
So what's your advice to Donald Trump when she does try to deflect?
He is looking forward to this debate, and he is looking forward to focusing on Kamala Harris's record. And as you've said a few times this morning, Ainsley, since I've been watching, why hasn't she fixed the things that she is now saying are broken over the last 3.5 years? She is the incumbent candidate in this race. She is Vice President Kamala Harris, and she has had the opportunity over these 3.5 years, especially with Joe Biden, to have already brought about the kinds of changes that she is now promising that she will do in her quote-unquote new way forward. How can there be a new way forward when she is responsible for disastrous economic and foreign policies, domestic and international policies that have been the hallmark of this administration, once again, that have not helped the American people? It's actually hurt the American people.
Yeah, I know that he said when he had the town hall with Sean Hannity, he said, you might not like me, but look at my policies compared to Kamala Harris's policies. And there's a poll out this morning, New York Times Siena poll, saying that 1/3 of American voters don't even know what she stands for. So she's put some of her policies on her website. What if Donald Trump, what if she nudges him to go personal? Many people are telling Donald Trump, don't go personal. Keep it on the policies. What's your advice for him there?
President Trump doesn't need my advice on this because he is very much focused on the issues and how he will fix what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have broken over these last 3.5 years. Donald Trump isn't running for president for himself. He is running for president because he sees the risks and the dangers that we face as a country right now, specifically because of the Harris-Biden administration. And he wants to serve our country and serve the American people and actually fix what they have broken.
The rules that he's agreed to and Kamala has now agreed to are the same rules that we saw at the last presidential debate when he was debating Joe Biden. It's muted mics, no studio audience. You can't take notes, just water and a piece of paper and a pen. So if you want to jot down thoughts in the middle of the debate, how does that fare for Donald Trump? Does that help him or hurt him?
I think he did a fantastic job in his debate against Joe Biden. Clearly, the results speak for themselves, and he will do the same in this debate with Kamala Harris. You know, Vice President Harris should not be underestimated. Clearly, as some of the media reports have shown, they have been studying my debate with her in 2019 and setting aside almost a week of solid debate prep with the lights and the stage and the stand-ins and everything. Donald Trump hasn't been doing that because he doesn't need to do it. He's been out speaking to the American people. She's taking this debate seriously. She will come prepared with memorized lines, ready to recite and deliver them in what I think will be a very effective way. However, she cannot run away from her record. President Trump looks forward to making sure the American people remember what she has done over these last 3.5 years and how she had the opportunity to fix what's broken, but she's the one responsible for breaking it. He will come in as president and actually begin to fix those problems and get us back on track as a country.
I know you were so calm during that debate with her. That was the summer, and then she dropped out of the race that next December. It speaks volumes that you're helping Donald Trump after you ran as a Democrat and ran against her. Thank you so much, Tulsi, for coming on.
Thanks, Ainsley.
You're welcome.
Good to see you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.